أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope all of you are doing great. Today inshallah we are going to study the very basic points about fail. Okay, now this is not going to be an exhaustive lesson about fail because as I mentioned here in this lesson, in this section, our main purpose would be to understand the ultimately basic points, all right, and then our focus would be on memorizing certain patterns that are the giveaway signs or telltale signs of a word being a fail. Okay, so that's the idea or the theme of this lesson and the next lesson as well. So first of all, as I mentioned before, simply try and memorize the patterns that I'll tell you here. And only remember the very important and the very ultimately basic points regarding the usage of these fail. Okay, so let's begin with the lesson. Rabbi Yasir, Wala Asir, wa Tamim bil Khair, Amin ya Rabbal Alameen. All right, so what do we see in English? We form simple sentences consisting of a subject, all right, and a fail or verb. Okay, so as you can see, I've written a couple of sentences, simple sentences over here. For example, Zaid helped, he helped, Fatma helps, she helps, the boy helped, a group of students helped, they helped. Now, what do you see? You see that the fa'il or the doer or the subject can either be a pronoun, all right, he, she, they, all right, it ran, for example, all right, so then the word it is a pronoun and that would be the doer. Okay, or it could be otherwise, so it's either going to be a pronoun or not a pronoun. All right, so that's the first part about file. Now why I'm discussing this is because there's a tiny addendum in English, in Arabic. Okay, so what do I mean by that? And of course, yes, I find it really cool. Okay, so what do we need to know? Apart from these two facts, that a fa'il can either be a pronoun or otherwise, in Arabic, a fa'il may be exposed or unexposed. Okay, so the fa'il may be written right next to the fa'il, or it could not be written and yet it would be understood who the fa'il is. That is what is absolutely cool about Arabic. So for example, if our file is not exposed, all right, you cannot see any file over here. It's a single word and it's a complete sentence in itself. It means he helped. Okay, how do we get to that? This is coming up. Okay, so don't focus on that point, that how do we know if it means he helped, what about she helped, they helped, I helped, so on and so forth. We will cover that in this lesson, but at a later stage. Okay, at this moment simply remember that the file in some cases may be unexposed. All right, so you will not see any extra word written right next to the fail, and at that moment you are simply going to understand that the file is unexposed. Okay, you cannot see the file. All right, but in certain cases the file may be exposed, as you can see over here. Okay, so for example, Nasara Hamidun. All right, now how do I know that it is actually your exposed file and not a doer, not an object or the maf'ul? How do we know that? Remember how we did in the catch-up series about the 4 situations in which an ism is supposed to be rafa. All right, so whenever an ism is rafa and it's beside a verb, it means that it is your doer. Okay, so for example, we all know the phrase sadaqallahu. All right, Allah spoke the truth. Khalaqallahu. All right, Allah created. So who's the doer here? Who's the file? The word Allah. All right, similarly, and how do we work that out? Well, first of all is common sense, and the second point is that the word Allah is rafa. Okay, so that's what. Whenever you see an ism which is rafa and you find it right next to or near your fi'il, then it means that it is fa'il. And of course, it's exposed. You can see it physically over there, right? So that's why it's the exposed fa'il. Okay, let's go through this thing again. The fa'il may be exposed or unexposed, all right? Something that is different in Arabic from other languages. Many other languages will. Okay, then if exposed, it's the word in rafa form regardless of this number. Forget this part right now, all right? Regardless of its number, forget this thing, all right? Simply remember that if you see an ism in rafa form, all right, and of course if it is sitting right next to or somewhere near your fi'il, then it's going to be the fa'il. There is no other reason for it to be rafa then. Okay, so what do I see here? I see nasara hamidun, rafa. Nasara waladun, rafa. All right, so the files are exposed over here, right? And it means Hamid helped, a boy helped. Nasara muslimuna, una sound. What does that tell us? Rafa. So the file is exposed. All right, and it means Muslims helped. If it were Nasaral Muslimuna, then it would have been the Muslims helped. Okay, Nasara Muslimani. I hope you can identify this ani sound. It means Musanna Rafa, masculine. Okay, Nasara Muslimani. So it's Rafa. All right, and therefore we can say that it is the exposed file. Okay, and it means two masculine Muslims helped. Okay, now this masculine thing, you don't really need to say it because it seems really weird and unusual when you are translating it in English. This is something that you should now be able to understand just by looking at the word. Okay, so that's what. So I hope that this concept of the file being exposed or unexposed is clear now. Okay, now what happens if the file is unexposed? If unexposed, its file is a pronoun. That is something that you need to know. Okay, if the file is exposed, you're going to see it written right next to or somewhere near your file, and it's going to be in rafa form. If the file is unexposed, then it's automatically going to be understood as a pronoun. The file is a pronoun. All right, and of course, how are you going to come to this conclusion? Simply because you're not going to find any rafa word with or near the fi'il. All right, so this is a single word: nasarat, nasarna, and nasarta. All right, they are individual words, and you don't see any other word in rafa form right next to them. So what do you understand? You simply understand that the fa'il is unexposed here and it's kind of embedded in the word itself. So what do I mean by that? For example, remember how we did the word abidatani, for example, right? Abidatani. And remember how we did 4 characteristics of an ism? And based on those 4 characteristics, we can see that this word is musanna, 2p, all right, and it's feminine because of this tani suffix, all right, and it's 2p or musanna simply because of this tani suffix, and it is rafa, and it is nakra. Why? Because there is no reason for it to be marfa and you cannot see any al right next to it. Okay, so it is nakra. So just by knowing these things, you are able to see 4 properties of the ism abidatani just by looking at it. All right, so all these 4 meanings are kind of embedded in this word. Okay, similarly, if the file is unexposed, you can understand that the file is a pronoun and that kind of pronoun is actually embedded within this word itself. Okay, so if I have translated the word nasarat as she helped, okay, the implication or the essence of this word, of this fail, being a fail mazi or past tense, and the doer is she, all right, these two things can be understood just by looking at this word nasarat, at this pattern. Okay, similarly, if I say nasarna, okay, once again, the fact that this thing is past tense and the file is unexposed and the pronoun is we, okay, this is something already embedded in this pattern. Similarly, in the word nasarta, it means you, masculine, singular, okay, singular, okay. So once again, if I simply see the word nasarta, okay, it is understood and obvious that this thing is past tense and the doer is your pronoun, and that pronoun is you, anta, simply, okay. So I hope that this thing is now clear. Now, the reason I spent so much time explaining this thing is that it's going to save us a lot of time in the coming up lessons, and even in section D, inshallah, when we are going to study all about fail, inshallah. Okay, so and it's going to also going to tell you the rationale behind learning the patterns that I'm about to tell you. Okay, so that's the rationale. First thing was that the doer can either be a pronoun or otherwise. The second cool thing about this thing in about this rule is that the file may be exposed or unexposed. If it is unexposed, how would you decide that? If you see any word, any ism in rafa form near or right next to your fail, then that would mean that it is an exposed file. Okay, and if it is not exposed, how are you going to arrive to that conclusion if you're simply going to see no rafa word with or near the field? Okay, that's when you are going to realize that this is actually a case of unexposed file. And when does that happen? When do you find any unexposed file? That happens when the file is a pronoun. Okay, here. So here, she helped, we helped, you helped. All of these are unexposed file, but just uh, embedded these two things, that this is past tense and he is the doer, okay, or she is the doer, we are the doers, okay. So this is something that we can very easily tell just by looking at the pattern. All right, now we are going to begin the patterns, okay, but before that, of course, we need to recall our rafa pronouns because this is all about pronouns, okay. So I hope that you remember this chart from section A. And once again, third person, second person, first person, or the speaker, okay? So we have wahid, musanna, jama, and then first we have masculine, feminine, all right? I am going to translate the pronouns, the rougher pronouns, just this ones, and then after that we are going to mention simply the Arabic counterparts of these pronouns. Okay, so listen to these meanings carefully, and if you haven't yet done these rougher pronouns, or you're having some trouble in them, then I would urge you to go back to section A or to the catch-up series and look up this lesson about rougher pronouns so that you can progress seamlessly, inshallah. All right, so recalling our rougher pronouns now. First of all, we have huwa. Huwa means he. Huma is both of them masculine. Hum, all of them masculine or used for a collective noun. Okay, then we have hiya. Hiya means she. Huma, both of them feminine. All right, so these two are identical, and it's the context that tells you which one is being used. Okay, then you have hunna, all of them feminine, okay? And then you have second person, anta. Anta means you. You for singular masculine, okay? Anta. Then you have antuma, all right? Antuma. And this is your musanna for masculine. Antum, all of you. And this is going to translate as all of you, okay? Antuma is both of you, and antum is all of you, masculine, okay. And of course it can also be used for your collective noun, okay. Then you have anti, all right, anti, and this means you in feminine and singular, of course. Antuma, same as huma, all right. So huma is this huma is the musanna for masculine as well as feminine. Antuma is all of you, I'm sorry, both of you for masculine as well as feminine. Okay, and then you have antuna. Antuna is all of you feminine. Okay, so if you're talking to a group of women who are present right there and you're talking to them, all of you, then you're going to use antuna. Okay, ana is I, nahnu is we. Okay, so huwa huma hum, hiya huma hunna, anta antuma antum, anti antuma antuna, ana and nahnu. Okay, now all of these pronouns are actually embedded in the patterns that we are going to study now. Okay, so this is what it becomes. Now this is the actual fail mazi that we have started. Okay, let's make it this way. Okay, that's great. So you have your chart for this thing, fail mazi. Okay, and as you can see, you can look at these pronouns over here in black. All right, these are your rafa pronouns. Okay, and the reason I've color coded this thing is that or rather I have made them in different colors, is that this hua is actually embedded in this pattern, this huma is actually embedded in this pattern, this hum is embedded in this pattern. Similarly, antuma is embedded in this and this pattern. Okay, and antuna in this pattern, nahnu in this pattern. Okay, so this is what we need to study now. All of these pronouns, rafa pronouns, are embedded in these patterns. All right, and what are these patterns? These patterns are simply your suffixes for past tense or fi'l mazi. Okay, so I hope that this is clear. All right, so whether you, all right, one more thing. So if you say fa'altum, for example, it is obvious that this antum is embedded in it. Okay, similarly fa'ala, he did. So the concept of he did, this is how you would translate it. So you don't need to say this hua is already embedded in it. But there are cases, if you there are cases where you would want to mention this hua separately, and that is one of the reasons or one of the situations where you are going to show some kind of stress on the doer. Okay, that's when you are going to expose it separately, but that would come later on. Here simply remember that it is this hua or hiya and nanda and all these things, they are embedded in the pattern itself. All right, number one. Number two, whether you say them separately or not, it doesn't matter, the fact remains the same. Okay, that fa'ala would be for huma, fa'alu would be hum. Okay, so that's what. Now we will do these after the lesson. Okay, so these are some of the examples. For example, ja'ala. So you have this word, and ja'ala means he made. Now just by knowing this thing, you can complete this entire cycle till nahnu. Okay, this is what we are going to now look at. Okay, these are your colored, or these are your patterns where I have indicated the suffix or the difference in a separate color. Okay, so we already know fa'ala or nasara. This is the example. Okay, so nasara, he helped. Now if you prolong this a sound at the end, it would become your musanna, huma. Okay, so it would be nasara. Nasara, he helped. Nasara, both of them masculines, helped. Okay, now this prolonged sound is kind of you could say that this is like a classic musanna ending. Okay, so that's what. Okay, next, nasaru. Nasaru, if you instead of having this fatha, if you remove this fatha and replace it with dhamma, then it would, and then of course you prolong this sound. All right, then this would be your pattern for whom. Okay, all of them masculines or collective noun, helped. Okay, nasaru, nasara, nasara, nasaru. All right, next, feminine, nasarat. All right, so you still have fatha on the last root letter, okay, and then you add the suffix of ta, regular ta, with sakun. Okay, so it's nasarat. Okay, and now you want to make it musanna, so you simply make it ta, nasarata. It's quite easy if you progress it. If you notice this progress, all right, and you're going to notice this thing, that nasara, nasara, nasaru, nasarat, nasarata. Once again, this prolonged thing shows that it is like a classic musanna ending. Okay, nasara, nasara, nasaru, nasarat, nasarata. All right, now these five are the ones that, as you can see, are mutaharrik in the last root letter. I'm sorry, not this one. All right, over here, the last root letter, as you can see. All right, so about the root letter, nasara, the first root letter is noon, sod, and then the last one is ra. Okay, from this huwa pattern, you can easily look out or make you can make out the root letters just by looking at the pattern of huwa. Alright, so it's actually huwa nasara, but this thing would actually tell you what the root letters are, nasara. Okay, similarly, now what are you going to notice? You're going to notice that in these five patterns, you are going to notice that the last root letter is going to carry some harakat. It is going to be mutaharik. So here it's carrying a fatha, fatha with a prolonged sound. This is your dhamma, this is your fatha, once again fatha. All right. However, when you switch to hunna, okay, you're going to notice that hunna onwards, the last root letter is always going to carry a sakun. All right, notice how it is. Sakun everywhere. All the ras here are carrying a sakun. All right, and this is where the course of history kind of changes. Okay, so once again, the third root letter from hunna onwards is always going to carry a sakun. Nasarna. Okay, and we had hunna, nasarna, and hunna is embedded in nasarna. Okay, hunna, nasarna. All right, next, nasarta. Now this anta had a fatha on ta, therefore nasarta is going to be, or fa'alta, ja'alta, hadaita. All right, all of these, whenever you hear this ta in the end of a fi'l, of course, then it would mean that this is your anta, anta fail pattern, mazi. Okay, that's what nasarta. And once again, apart from the suffix, notice that how it is carrying a sakun. The last root letter is carrying a sakun. Okay, next, nasar, once again nasar. All right, and then tuma. Tuma is for your antuma. Okay, so classic musanna ending, once again tuma. All right, because it is kind of prolonged. Okay, next you have nasartum. All right, nasarta, nasartuma, nasartum. Okay, now this is something that you'll have to practice a lot, and the more you practice, the better you will be able to memorize it and understand it and apply it and identify it. Okay, so that's what nasartum. All of you, masculine or collective noun, helped. Okay, then anti nasarti. Anti is already embedded, and this ti um, means that this is actually anti, that the doer, that the file is anti, or simply wahid, feminine, uh, you. Okay, then same is the case for nasartuma. All right, these two are identical. Okay, next nasartuna. All right, antuna, nasartuna. All right, so tuna is the suffix for antuna. Okay, or you could say that tuna is the suffix for your doer, which is antuna. Okay, and then finally I is ana, or ana is nasartu. All right, so the suffix is going to carry adama, and of course, as always, the last root letter is going to carry a sakun, and then nasarna. All right, okay, so let's go through it once again. Nasara, nasara, nasaru, nasarat, nasarata, nasarna, nasarta, nasartuma, nasartum, nasarti, nasartuma, nasartunna, nasartu, nasarna. One more thing. This is nasarna and this is nasarna. Why? Because here it is na with alif, silent alif, but it's going to prolong the sound of noon. And here there is no alif, therefore it's only nasarna. Okay, nasarna, nasarna. All right, so don't confuse these two. So, well, this is pretty much it. And now we can look at these examples. Ja'ala. Ja'ala means he made. So if I ask you to pause the screen and work out this ja'ala, put this ja'ala on this table of fi'l mazi and complete this entire table accordingly. So you're going to form, all right, pause the screen and then listen to what I'm saying, okay? Ja'ala, ja'ala, ja'alu, ja'alat, ja'alata, ja'alna, ja'alta, ja'altuma, ja'altum, ja'alti, ja'altuma, ja'altunna, ja'altu, ja'alna. All right, prolong this sound. Prolong this sound, ja'alna, and of course you have to prolong this one as well because this one is simply ja'ala. This is ja'ala. Now I'm not going to translate what this entire thing means because by now you should be able to know that nasartum, for example, or ja'altum has tum right next to it or as a suffix. All right, so the doer is fa'il. The doer is your pronoun, all right, and the pronoun for this tum pattern, fa'altum or nasartum or ja'altum pattern is antum. So all of you, masculine or collective noun, all of you helped or all of you created or all of you made. Okay, all of you wrote. Kataba. Kataba means he wrote. So kataba, kataba, katabu, katabat, katabata, katabna, katabta, katabtuma, katabtum, katabti, katabtuma, katabtuna, katabtu, katabna. All right, if I say katabti, I should know that this is actually talking about anti katabti. You, singular, feminine, wrote. Okay, so this is how it's going to be translated. Okay, so but just by saying katabti, you have said all those 4 or 5 words in just a single word. Okay, so that's pretty cool about Arabic. It knows how to, it has very concise and very precise speech. All right, now just a couple of few examples and then we'll wind it up. Khalaqallahul insana. All right, now forget al insana for now. What do you see? You see khalaqallahu. This is this example that I gave you in the beginning actually. So what do you see? You see that there is khalaqa. Now this khalaqa, nasara, kataba. What does this tell you? That this is your huwa pattern. Okay, and right next to this, so if you forget this word right now, right next to it, if you simply see khalaqa, then you would translate it as he created. Okay, khalaqat would be she created. Khalaqtum, all of you created. But here we have khalaqa. Okay, so khalaqa is he created. But right next to it, you see the word Allahu, and it is in Rafa form, so of course it is the fa'il. So you're going to translate it as Allah created. Okay, now you have the word al-insan now right next to it. All right, and what did we learn about the asma? That are nasab, that they are the details of any verb or something. Okay, now there are many reasons for an ism to be in nasab form, and the most common one is that it is going to be a detail of something. Okay, so al-insana, what did Allah create? He created the mankind, al-insana. All right, so whenever you see a nasab form, a nasab ism right next to it, or ism mansub simply, all right, that would mean that this is the maf'ul. Maf'ul is the ism that receives the action. Okay, that's what. Similarly, if I say khalaqal insana, now here the word al insana is nasab, not rafa. All right, and there is no rafa ism right next to it or anywhere near it. All right, so I cannot see any rafa ism right next to it. So it would automatically mean that it is, or rather the fa'il is hidden or kind of unexposed, and it is pronoun, and it is right in this pattern. So you're going to say that he created the mankind. The fa'il is unexposed. Okay, that's what. All right, now just a final point, and then inshallah we are going to end it. There is a rule for using the exposed file. All right, and what that rule is, that only the huwa and hiya versions of the fi'il can be used with the exposed file, regardless of its number. All right, so now this is the part that we are going to uh, just cover the portion that I asked you to ignore earlier on, regardless of its number. Okay, what do I mean by that? I simply mean that, for example, uh, what is the huwa version of nasara? It is nasara, right? And what is the hiya version of nasara? It is nasarat. All right, here hiya version is fa'alat or nasarat simply. Huwa version is fa'ala or nasara. Okay, okay, so only the hiya and huwa versions of the fi'il are used with the exposed file. Okay, nasara hamidun, nasara hiya huwa version. Nasara muslimuna huwa version. Nasara al-muslimani huwa version. All right, so what I'm trying to say is that if your file is exposed, you're going to use the huwa version. No matter, doesn't matter if your file is masculine, I'm sorry, if your file is musanna or plural, jama salim, jama mukassir, whatever. Okay, forget about jama mukassir for now. But if it is plural or your file is musanna or it's singular, doesn't matter. If it is exposed, you have to use the huwa version. All right, that's what you can see. I mean, logically, whatever we have studied so far in ism, it should have been nasaru muslimuna. Why? Because the verb should correspond with the number of the file as well. Okay, but that's not how things work in Arabic. Why? Because it is the rule. It's the Arab discretion, and we have to obey it. We have to comply to it. So whenever you have to use the exposed file, always use the nasara version or the huwa version. Similarly, ja'ala Ja'alallahu, we know this, okay? Ja'alal Muslimuna, for example, right? So they created something, made something, okay? So that's what. Whenever you have to use the exposed file, regardless of its number, simply use the huwa version or the hiya version if your file is feminine, okay? So for example, Nasarat is your hiya version. So if I'm saying that Fatima too, or Fatima helped, then Fatima 2 is your exposed file, okay, and then therefore you're going to use the hiya version, Nasarat Fatima 2. Similarly, if your exposed file is plural and feminine, you're going to use the hiya version. So it's going to be Nasarat Muslimatun. Then you're going to use, similarly, if your exposed file is musanna and feminine, then you're going to once again use the hiya version, which is Nasarat Muslimatani. Okay, so I hope this is clear. And if you need to join this Nasarat's sakooned ta with the next word, then you simply replace its sakoon with kasra. All right, why? Only to facilitate a smooth flow of speech. All right, so for some reason the Arabs found it hard to say Nasarat al-Muslimatani. Okay, so just to remove this hindrance in a smooth flow of speech, they decided to replace its sukoon with a kasra. All right, similar. That's where you get, for example, if you are in the first ayah of Surah Al-Waqi'ah, you see, "Iza waqa'atil waqi'atu." All right, so this till is actually the smooth flow of speech facilitation point. Okay, it is actually iza waqa'at al waqi'atu. Okay, so this is something that you need to know. All right, so we are done with our patterns, we are done with our some concepts and everything, and this since these points were essential to tell you, because you are now going to start, memorizing these fail patterns. So this lesson needed to incorporate all these things. Okay, so that's why it got a bit long. However, the next one is going to be really small because we already know all these points. I won't have to build any foundation and all these concepts before moving on. Okay, moving on to the patterns. So of course that one is going to be much shorter, inshallah. But remember all these points are really, really important. Okay, you need to know all these things. If there is any query or any confusion, of course you can reach out to me and I'll try to make it simpler. And till the next lesson, I take your leave. And of course, practice a lot, guys. This thing needs a lot of practice, constant practice, persistent practice. Okay, so we'll end it now. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al Hakim. Allah Hafiz.